Sometimes you gotta remind her, not because she forgot, but because the world gets loud. And when it does, you step in and remind her who she is. She wake up, hair tied, no makeup burn, still looking like the cover of a magazine song. Running the house, running her business too. Whole world moving, but she stay cool. She don't even know what she do to her room. She walk in, everything resume. Confidence off, but the power loud. Queen energy, don't need a crown. And I see them watching, but they don't know what I know. They see the outside glow, but I know her soul. So when she doubt herself, even a little bit, that's when I lean in close and tell her this. Sometimes you gotta remind your woman, she the baddest, most beautiful alive. Ain't no competition, ain't nobody touching you. That fire they can't deny. Girl, you don't see what I'm seeing, but baby, you stop my whole world every time. Sometimes you gotta remind your woman, she the baddest, most beautiful alive. She carry pressure like diamonds do, still shine bright while she pushing through. If she ever feel less than gold, that's when I step in and take control. Tell her, look at you, look at you. Mirror don't show what I see in you. Strength so fine, grace so raw, whole lot of beauty with no flaws. If the world ever make you question, if your light ever feel dim, come here baby, let me correct it, let me remind you again. You don't compete, you set the tone, you don't chase, you get chosen. Every room you enter shifts, and I'm just lucky I'm the one you with. Sometimes you gotta remind, sometimes you gotta remind your woman, she the baddest, most beautiful alive. Ain't no crown, but she reign forever. That's my queen right by my side. Girl, you wear like midnight diamonds, one-on-one, ain't no design. Sometimes you gotta remind your woman, she the baddest, most beautiful alive. Did she forget? Sometimes you gotta remind your woman. Tell her again. Sometimes you gotta remind your woman. Sometimes you gotta remind your woman. Sometimes you gotta remind your woman. Sometimes you gotta remind her. Tell her again. Sometimes you gotta remind her, not because she forgot, but because the world gets loud. And when it does, you step in and remind her who she is. Sometimes you got it. Sometimes you gotta remind her. 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 Sometimes you gotta. Sometimes you gotta remind her. Sometimes you gotta remind her. Sometimes you gotta remind her.